I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hey Kiki, why be with a hero when you can dance with a zero?
We are Party Martians! We are MTV Scum!
Yes, it is our summer of freedom where we are going completely off format and reviewing non-Disney movies for the remainder of the month. And it is very liberating to get away, to get out of the Disney bubble for a bit.
Toss off the mouse ears for a little bit and just kind of do what we want.
Yeah, because it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Theoretically, that is true.
Yeah. So this week, we are talking the 1988 movie Earth Girls Are Easy.
Before we get any further, we do want to make a little note about the audio. This is being recorded during a massive heat wave, and both of us are kind of under heat warnings right now, despite living in completely different parts of the country. So if you hear any weird, wind blowing or anything, it's because we've got, all of the climate control things pointed straight at us right now.
Pretty much. So
We are trying not to melt.
it's almost like we are in the valley.
Yeah. Actually, I think right now, the valley actually has a better temperature than either of us. It would be more comfortable to be in the valley temperature-wise.
So yeah, Earth Girls Are Easy, written by someone we talked about last week, Julie Brown.
Just say Julie Bruin. Sorry.
Yeah, this is kind of at the beginning of her career. And the story of how this movie got made is incredible. So to prepare for this podcast, we had to listen to another podcast.
Yeah.
So the information we're going to be talking about, the making of Earth Girls Are Easy, is coming from the Media Path podcast, which did an interview with Julie Brown. It's uploaded on their YouTube page not so long ago. So fairly recent. So we're going to go with the information that Julie Brown gave in that podcast. So Julie Brown, this kind of goes all the way back to the beginning of Julie Brown's career as a struggling actor in LA in the early 1980s, late 1970s, around there. So she does a lot of acting group work, and she does a bunch of sketch comedy stuff, and she does a couple of songs. The songs get popular. She releases an album, and the album gets popular through get a cult following through some airplay, mostly through a show that is near and dear to both of our hearts, Kiki, the Dr. Demento show.
Yeah, we love us some Dr. Demento.
Yeah, her first big hit was a song called I Like 'Em Big and Stupid, but ironically, it was the B-side that became the bigger hit, which was a song called The Homecoming Queen's Got a Gun. That is the name of the song, and I hope we don't get popped for that.
Yeah. And needless to say, that particular song that kind of launched her career has not aged well. But lots of her stuff has, including I Like 'Em Big and Stupid, which I consider the himbo anthem.
I mean, she is, she grew up in the Valley. So I'm pretty sure she saw a lot of just big and stupid surf bros or gym bros or whatnot. And hey, as the song says, she just wants a good time. She's not necessarily looking to settle down at that time, or even though she technically was married at the time.
Yeah, and also a lot of Julie Brown's persona in the 80s was that kind of Valley Girl aesthetic, because that was the point when it was really popular, It was...
God, I am gag me with a spoon.
Yeah, and most of those phrases were not known outside of the Valley until the Frank Zappa song. And I mean, specifically, I think "Gag Me with a Spoon" kind of became popular because of the Frank Zappa song, because it's in there, with his daughter. That whole song, if you've never heard it, is just his daughter making fun of the girls that she found annoying at her high school, the really cliquish popular girls. And all of those were, it was the beginning of what we think of as the quote unquote Valley Girl trend. Julie Brown was really, really good at that. Even though if you hear her talk, like, please go listen to the podcast we just name dropped. But if you listen to her in interviews, she's like a perfectly down to earth kind of person in
Like
that sense.
her normal voice is a full octave down from her Valley Girl voice that she does in most of her stuff.
Yeah, if you ever saw her on MTV or if you watch her in this movie and whatever, like pitch her an octave down and take away all that slang, and that's just kind of her natural tone. But she's just so good at doing that. And she even did it, we talked about last week's movie when we were talking about Camp Rock. She kind of had a little bit of that, it was like an aging Valley Girl kind of thing.
Yeah. So the songs from that album gets her recognized by Warner Brothers, of all things. They want to sign her, and they re-released that first album on their label, Rhino Records. Wow, we're doing all of the Dr. Demento references in this episode.
Yeah, we're doing all of the stuff we grew up absolutely steeped in. It's a Dr. Demento show, it's Rhino Records, it's these like kitschy B sci-fi movies, musical theater. It's like, and and of course, like the comedians of the 80s and 90s, which we will get further into.
So yeah, and while at Warner, they ask her, do you have any ideas for movies based off her sketches and her songs? And yeah, and she wrote this movie, Earth Girls Are Easy, based off her song from that first album, Earth Girls Are Easy.
Which is actually let me start that again. Which is actually the opening track to the film that plays over the opening credits.
But not sung by Julie Brown. They actually hire another band to cover that song, weirdly enough.
Yeah. But yeah, that like Earth Girls Are Easy, that, and it's just a cover of her song. And I think the most interesting thing about this was how Julie wrote, they asked Julie if she had anything based on her songs, and she had been toying with turning the concept of Earth Girls Are Easy into kind of a jukebox musical of her own stuff.
I was say, because there's enough musical moments in this movie that I had forgotten, and it made me think, was this intended to be a musical?
Well, I mean, it is a musical still, because it has actual characters singing songs about their feelings and stuff. So
One song being lip synced by Gina Davis.
yeah, but the thing is though is that this was originally supposed to be a vehicle for Julie Brown, who was okay. She had been in some movies and she had been in several TV shows by this point. Because, I mean, we can't dance around it. She grew up in Hollywood. Her parents were, her parents, her grandparents, like all of them had worked in the film or TV business to some level. And so, I'm not exactly being like she's a nepo baby with no talent, because both of us absolutely love Julie Brown and consider her a huge comedic talent. But let's not pretend that didn't play some kind of thing. I mean, she went to she went to art schools and stuff, Uh, but this was originally written for her to play the lead role that eventually went to Gina Davis. And even though she had a bunch of acting behind her at that point, the movie studio looked at her and was like, "Yeah, you're not you're not a name, you know?"
Keep in mind that at this point, through that deal with Rhino Records, she got the MTV gig. So she's already known on MTV at that time. And like you said, she still did some acting on the side, but she wasn't a headline name, which is very interesting because at the same time that all of this is happening, Paul Reubens just gets a starring role in a Pee Wee Herman movie, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Cassandra Peterson translates her late night show into the movie Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. At the time of this movie's release, Weird Al Yankovic is filming UHF.
Yeah, and lots of people that had been on MTV had already started to go into film based on the fact that tons of kids watched them on MTV, like kids, teens. And while this is kind of a raunchy comedy, because it is kind of a sex comedy, so if you listen to this one with your littles, beware. It's not like a full R-rated episode or anything, but this is a movie that should definitely not be watched by anybody too young to know human procreation,
Oops.
Yeah, you had access to higher levels of cable than I did at a much earlier age.
Yeah.
So I finally saw this in my teens. This was the movie that I watched all the time when I was a teen, because it would come on like Comedy Central and stuff.
But it's this movie, it's got little funny aliens in it. Okay, little guy, you can watch this movie while mommy go cooks dinner.
Well, it's rated PG and it's got that Jim Carrey guy in it, so
I really liked him in Once Bitten.
totally great movie.
Because
We'll get to that.
That came out right before this. This is pre In Living Color, which is also
Yeah.
this has Damon Wayans in. This is before In Living Color was a thing. So I had already known who Jim Carrey was.
Yeah, but the thing is that I kind of I heard something that Julie Brown said in the podcast we were just talking about, where it really kind of reminded me of something I've been through myself. When I was studying theater in college, there were kind of two tracks in our theater program. There were like the people that were there because they wanted to build sets and learn about lighting and learn, all that kind of stuff. And then there were the people that were there because they wanted to be actors and they wanted to be on stage. All right. So it was kind of easy to tell the delineation between the two, even though in a college theater program, you're even going to throw the people building the sets on stage, you know, especially in one as small as the one I went to. But the thing is that I went in there and I I kind of wanted to go in there for more the acting stuff, even though I like all the behind the scenes stuff as well. But I did want to get some stage time. And I spent like 4 years in that program where, like, yeah, I would get some stage time, but I would be like, I was the oldest girl in the department. Okay, so of all the women that were in the department, I was the oldest. And even though I didn't really look that old, all of the professors were like, well, you're like 10 years older than anybody else here. So whenever we have an old woman character, that's going to be who you play. And I don't know if you've ever seen a lot of college theater, but they don't exactly do like King Lear and stuff. It's all, Hamlet. It's all like, what's this teenage boy doing? It's never like, what are the old people doing? So anytime I got on stage, it was always like, oh, you're going to be the old lady. You're going to have two lines in one scene, and then you're going to sit backstage for the rest of the show. And Julie Brown tells the story about her selling this thing that was based on her music. It had all of her songs in it. They were asking her for film ideas because she was known on MTV. And then they looked at her and they were like, we love the idea, but you're not big enough or, a good enough actress to be like the lead in your own movie.
You're not good enough to play yourself in your movie.
Yeah. And so she talks about how, skipping ahead in the production a little bit, she rewrites the best friend character from the main character's like gay male best friend that's supposed to work with her into like a female best friend valley girl that more suits Julie's, aesthetic at the time. And the songs that she was supposed to sing in the movie and everything was cut and all. And then they saw the studio executives saw the first cut of the movie and they were like, "Oh, you're actually really funny and a good actress and like perfect in this part. We should have you like record some extra stuff, including that song we cut." And when she said that, I was like, "Oh man, I know that so well," because it was literally like my final semester in college after having gone through 4 years of this theater program, right? And a class I was taking, the students decided we didn't want to take a normal written exam, so we decided that we were going to put on a full production for our final exam. And so everybody in the class, because we were doing it ourselves and the professors weren't in charge of casting and, didn't giving out like who's doing what in the play like usual, we kind of got to do what we would have wanted to do if nobody else was, picking. And so I fought for like a massive role where I was basically on stage the whole time and everything. And we only did one performance of it. And after that, we're talking to the audience afterwards. We've taken our bows and people are coming up and being like, "Oh, that was really fun. Okay, good luck. Hope you get an A." And I see all of the professors coming towards me, like every professor in the department, because they were all there for the show. And they all kind of surrounded me and they were like, "What the hell was that?" And I'm like, "You know what? You can tell me I suck later. Like, can we just, I've got like a week and a half left of college and I just want to focus on that. Can we just not?" And they were like, "No, no, no. You can act. You're good. Why have you been hiding it?" And like I said, it was like a week and a half before I graduated, and I knew that even if I failed this one class, it wasn't going to stop me from graduating. So I kind of let them have it. I was like, "Excuse me, no." It's because, like, when you give somebody a single line, yeah, there's that whole thing about there are no small parts, only small actors, but that's kind of BS. And a lot of times, yeah, there are small parts. There's only so much you can do with like, "Oh, look, my queen comes," and then you walk off stage. Like, there's not a lot you can do with that, you know? And so it was, I kind of just let them have it at that point. I was like, you kept casting me in and they were like, "But you're here for the behind the scenes stuff. You're one of the tech crew people. You're not an actor." And I'm like, "Okay, but I took all the acting classes. I auditioned for every play. Yeah, how is it not clear that like I came here to get stage time and not to build sets?" Like, not that I'm against it. I love building sets, but So I heard that where it was like somebody's like, "Hey, all this stuff I do that you like, I have turned that into a movie." And people go like, "Yeah, but you're probably not good enough to be in the movie." And then they watch the movie and they're like, "Oh, it turns out you're actually good. Who would have thunk?" You know?
And I love the story how she did it because she was on vacation. She was that an ultimate 80s couple, Julie Brown and Penn Jillette.
Right? The other podcasters even go like, "Now that's a sentence," because she was like, "I was dating Penn Jillette and we were in the Caribbean," and it's like, okay, back up, because that was a hell of a sentence.
So yeah, she's on vacation with her at the time boyfriend Penn Jillette. She gets a call, "Hey, we need you to come back to LA for the reshoots." And they film like the "I'm a Blonde" song they got cut from the movie and they put it in there, and it's like, yeah.
And it really is a highlight of the movie. It was always my favorite part. of the movie watching when I was a kid, and I didn't know she wrote it, and I didn't know any, other than just like, oh, Julie Brown's in this, so of course they're gonna have her sing a song and do funny comedy things. Like, I didn't realize that this was her movie.
I mean, there was a Pee Wee Herman movie, there was an Elvira movie, there was a Weird Al movie, there was a, where we're getting to the Ernest P. Worrell movie,
To hear we're about to get to the Pauly Shore movie, got his start on MTV as well. So
unlike all of them, Julie Brown is in the supporting role rather than the lead role. And if she wasn't the lead role, I think she would have killed it.
yeah, no, it was absolutely, I mean, the character would have been a little different, but she wrote the character for herself, and then it had to be kind of modified when they gave it to Gina Davis.
And the beauty and the thing about the movie is it ends now. This is still early 1980s. We're not even at the Gina Davis stage of this because Warner puts the movie in development hell and ends up dropping it. It ends up going to Vestron Pictures. Vestron Pictures currently owned by Lionsgate. That was a shocker. Turning this movie on, seeing the Lionsgate logo.
Yeah.
So yeah, small studio, Vestron Pictures picks up the movie, and same deal. She's playing the best friend role, and they cast all these people, and they cast Gina Davis in the lead role as Valerie, and they tell her that she was approved by Julie Brown, which she wasn't. That's the story. And Julie said that Gina Davis was wrong for the role because Julie Brown's words, she's too tall. Gina Davis is a very tall woman. She's about in that 6 foot range. And, Julie Brown's like 5 foot nothing.
Yeah. And the thing is that the reason Julie Brown said that is because the image of a Valley Girl, to go to another thing that Julie Brown worked on, you think of like the Clueless girls, you think of like Alicia Silverstone, who I think is like 5'2". It's like you think of these tiny, skinny women, like very petite. And you don't really think of like, wow, she's the tall, leggy model type, which Gina Davis, although she was always kind of considered like the quirky female movie star, which I hate that because it's not. It sounds like I'm trying to call her like ugly or whatever. Gina Davis is absolutely gorgeous, especially in this movie. But Gina Davis had the body that was more like a runway model, not somebody that you would think of as like the rich girl going shopping on Rodeo Drive, Like, you think of much more like somebody tiny. You think of like like a Paris Hilton or something who is much shorter. But fortunately, it works out in the movie because one, Gina Davis was really good at that time of being the kind of like, I don't quite know where I am, and I'm very naive and ingenue, even though she had a much more like imposing physical presence, she had a way of like toning that down in her acting. And also, they cast 3 guys who are pretty damn tall.
Yeah. one being her boyfriend.
Yeah,
Let's
I
not.
think they were already dating at that point. I think we talked about it on the fly as well, but
Yeah. Believe they met filming Transylvania 65000. We're together during The Fly, and here we are at Earth Girls Are Easy. So
yeah.
they've already done a few movies together.
And if you don't know who we're talking about, that is of course Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, the Goldblum himself.
But and it's like, so it's like peak 80s, please be shirtless Jeff Goldblum, you know? And then they cast Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans, both who were like unknown. But I mean, go back and look at pictures of them from the 80s, and especially the way they style them in this movie. Both of them are absolutely gorgeous.
Honestly, Jim Carrey does look good as blonde.
Yeah, he did. They gave him that bleach blonde surfer boy look for this, and it actually worked for him at the time. But like you said, Jim Carrey had just come off of Once Bitten, which is its own kind of a great nostalgic throwback movie. And I'm not really sure about Damon Wayans, but I think he had already been on Saturday Night Live for just a little bit
He
at
had
that
just done
point.
Beverly Hills Cop, and this is right before I'm Gonna Get You Sucker.
Right, yeah. No, because he had done Beverly Hills Cop and then he did like one season of Saturday Night Live. And he got fired in that because Lorne Michaels does not like people improvising on the day. You can improvise in the writer's room, you can improvise when you're rehearsing for it. Okay, that's the time when you do it. But when you're actually going live, you should not be improvising. Everybody should know like what you are doing. So, yeah. So, like, they were both known a little bit, but they weren't stars, you know?
That would come a few years later, like I said, when they were doing In Living Color.
Yeah. The weirdest part of this movie to me is who directed it.
Yeah, Julian Temple, who was best known as a music video director.
Except he had done a kind of, dramatic film before this that was his like directorial debut a bit. And it was also a musical, but it was a musical that had David Bowie in it, which is the only reason I know this movie, called Absolute Beginners. And so he had just done that movie. And if you know anything about, film history or David Bowie or Julian Temple for that matter, yeah, it bombed. It bombed hard. This movie is not very well remembered by almost anybody. And in fact, most stories have Absolute Beginners being the thing that brought down the production company that funded it. And so then Julian Temple's next movie was Earth Girls Are Easy, which is such a weird like career progression to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're gonna do this like legit musical with David Bowie and everything in like the 80s. And it's like when he's like David Bowie, it's like right before he does Labyrinth and stuff, I think. And it's like, and what are you following that up with? Well, Julie Brown wrote a movie that's gonna have Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum.
Julie Brown, that chick from MTV, she wrote a movie and you're going to direct it?
Yeah. But he ends up being the perfect director for it because the movie needs that MTV aesthetic. They name drop MTV a ton in this movie, and it's not just because that's what Julie Brown was kind of doing at the time. That is the whole aesthetic of this movie. Is like, what if music videos were mixed with like really cheesy B sci-fi movies from the 50s and 60s, including the fact that there is one scene in this where Gina Davis has like a dream, and they must have raided the local like film geek historian warehouse or something. Because if you know anything about old sci-fi, you can place every single like mask and prop they put in there. I mean, and some of them are big, like they've got a Robbie the Robot.
Yeah, that was
You
that,
know,
that was yeah.
but they have masks that were like in one episode of the original series of Star Trek, or on some B movie that at when we were growing up, you would only ever see it either on Mystery Science Theater or maybe in the middle of the night on like, TCM or something. But like if you're the sort of film geek I am, you can go through and go like, I know where that prop comes from, which is really cool and also really bizarre, but it's all filmed as if like this were a music video as well. It's that MTV music video style of the late 80s when MTV was really, really hitting it big.
I did like they just go straight into black and white 50s B sci-fi mode.
Yeah, and they even use footage from the Cocteau Beauty and the Beast, which I had forgotten about.
Yeah, that I did notice that.
Yeah, and I was like, that is such a cool deep cut like even now, but like then as well, like before the internet, before you could just be like, let's turn it on, and there's Brows Held High doing a whole like musical about it.
Just a few years before Disney would get their Oscar-nominated Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, but especially in 1988, that's a really deep cut. That's like a real film nerd cut, as are most of the references in this movie in that sense. And then it is glossed over with this, like, let's use all of the Valley Girl slang, let's use all of the MTV pastiche, let's use all of the, and it's such a cool mashup of things that a lot of people later would do that kind of thing. But when this movie came out, it was kind of weird and groundbreaking.
It was, yeah. I mean, the Beauty and the Beast thing works because these are hairy aliens from head to toe, so the comparison works.
Yeah, and the thing is that this is a really short movie, but it packs a lot in. Like, I had forgotten that it's like 45 minutes into a 90-minute movie before you see the quote unquote hot versions of the aliens. Before they have their makeover and their transformation or whatever.
Yeah, because we see them at we see him at the beginning, right before the beginning credits, and then we go straight into Valerie's story, and then finally at that half hour mark, the two stories converge, and we actually get the movie started.
Yeah, literally crash land into each other.
Yeah, let's take a few more actors before we really get into this, because we have a member of Spinal Tap in this movie.
Yeah. Michael McKean, I had forgotten he plays Woody, the pool cleaner dude, who is, we talked about the Pauly Shore of it all a couple of weeks ago. And Woody in this film is what Pauly Shore's persona would have been like if he did not look down on that subculture when he created it.
Mm.
Because it was very obvious that the original intention of the Weasel character that he did, that he became most known for, was him like trying to brutally bully this subculture. It's like, oh, look at all of these weirdos who just sit around and, smoke certain substances and spend all day at the beach and have their own slang and lingo that I don't understand. Which is why none of Pauly Shore's lingo, one, holds up, or two, is comprehensible even at the time. He's just saying gibberish that he heard in his own mind. And the thing is that Julie Brown and Michael McKean, in his portrayal here, both of them are much kinder and understanding of that subculture. Like it is a riff on it. It is a joke on it. It is a parody of it, but it's not one that is coming from a cruel or bullying place. It's probably just both of these people were like, I have friends that are like that, and they're kind of cool and weird, and we hang out. And so I think that Michael McKean's Woody in this, like, if you want to go see, like, hey, that surfer slang valley aesthetic from a guy's point of view in that same time period that Pauly Shore is building his character, go watch just like a scene or two of Michael McKean in this movie, because it's a lot more legit and funny. Like,
Which
Woody
makes
is
it more,
hilarious as a character.
it's funnier when the aliens are mimicking Woody than it is when Link is mimicking Pauly Shore.
The interesting thing about the mimicry in this movie is they needed a way for the aliens to kind of learn English and be fish out of water, but ones that kind of blend enough that you're not like, oh, that's an alien. And so it's less like, the Mork and Mindy vibe is like, oh, well, they've just got like technology or whatever. Like a lot of sci-fi is just like, oh, they've got like a universal translator, or the TARDIS has translation circuits or whatever, you know? But I like the fact that they did the aliens are picking up stuff, like they can learn very quickly. So if they hear something, they can mimic it exactly. If they
Often with the same voice.
Yeah, and they do that for Jeff Goldblum, where he like hears the voicemail or the answering machine. They just have him like open his mouth basically, and it's like the recording of the answering machine, played back perfectly. But one of the cooler reasons that it works in the movie is because they got Jim Carrey, who people forget, but at this point in Jim Carrey's career, if you were to go see Jim Carrey as a stand-up act at roughly the time this movie was made, okay? His stand-up act at the time was basically 90% just him doing impressions, which we have forgotten that Jim Carrey is an immaculate impressionist.
Very, to talk about a peer, I guess you can say, a peer of his in the same vein, be like a Dave Coulier.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that that's how Dave Coulier started as well, But it's really interesting going back and watching this movie, particularly if you are a Jim Carrey fan, which I was. I mean, oh boy, did I have my Jim Carrey phase. And it is
Like, if you're a 2000 kid and you only know Jim Carrey from The Grinch, go back to this movie.
Yeah, if you've only seen Jim Carrey in like The Grinch or Sonic, or even if you only knew him starting with like Ace Ventura and stuff, he had kind of dropped a lot of that impression stuff from his act by the time he started doing In Living Color.
He brings some of it back for the mask, but that's because it's part of the character.
Yeah, but it is 100% of this character that he's playing, Whiplock, which I love that name. Best name.
I mean, he gives Julie Brown a whip.
Yeah. I do love that part where like they're in the dance club, which I had forgotten was just the Griffith Observatory with like a neon sign that's like dance disco or whatever. So it is kind of funny to watch where it's like, let's go to the really awesome disco, and then it's like just cuts to the Griffith Observatory and you're like, wait a minute. But when they're in that disco and like Jim Carrey's character, Whiplock has that tongue, and he like extends it to go down to the bottom of a champagne glass to like lick the rest of the champagne. And all the women are like, I'm going home with him. And then Julie Brown steps up and she's like, no, I'm going home with him. I was like, you get it, girl.
Which makes it sad. It's later in the movie, but I'll get to it. But it does make me sad because of the end of the movie.
Yeah, and we'll get to that because I have issues with the end of this movie as well. But
So
we do want to mention that antagonist, I guess, of this movie.
Charles Pitt as Valerie's fiance, Dr. Ted Gallagher.
And we have talked about him before, yeah.
He was the dad in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, and then not too long after this, over in 94, he'd be the villain in Dumb and Dumber. But yeah, with Jim Carrey, so already knew each other there. But he was in Saturday Night Live in like the 1980 season. So he is another former Saturday Night Live cast member. And I think that one of the things I really remember him for is he's like one of the big villains on Max Headroom, which I don't know if you grew up watching that as much as I did, but I love Max Headroom.
Most of my Max Headroom memories is the talk show version and not the TV show version.
I thought you were going to say the Pepsi commercials.
No.
I was like, if you say the Pepsi commercials, friendship over. No, but yeah, the talk show version, which I just found out that Larry David wrote for. Did you know that? That like
Did
Larry
not.
David, yeah, the guy behind Seinfeld being as watchable as it was. And of course, now everybody knows him just for his own work. But, before all that, he's writing jokes for Max Headroom's talk show. What a weird world we live in.
It is. It is.
Yeah, but he's Dr. Charles Rocket is Dr. Ted in this, and he is the douchey boyfriend of Gina Davis as the movie gets started. Um,
It's a really fun cameo. Larry Linville plays another doctor in the hospital, and of course, he's from MASH, so he's already
yeah,
playing a doctor.
yeah, and interestingly, the doctor that's on the soap opera in that one scene is actually the co-writer of this movie, Terrence McNally, who, if you ever watched like basically any TV show in the 80s or 90s, including Next Generation Star Trek, you will know him. But this is the only writing credit he has to his name. So I'm not exactly sure what his connection was with Julie at the time,
It
but
could be, it
yeah.
could be a situation where she wrote like a first draft and said, "Okay, we need someone to kind of make this flow better. Let's get some actual writers and people who know Hollywood scripts," because this was a first movie for her. She never written a movie.
Yeah,
So
and the thing is that the third writer listed on this movie is Charlie Coffey, who is kind of like Julie Brown's like writing partner. So it's I can get why Charlie Coffey is in here, but Terrence McNally, I don't really know how he ended up there. And then kind of the last and weirdest cameo in this movie is Angeline, who, because of the Futurama thing, I keep wanting to call Angeline because of the way she spells it. If you know Angeline, she is the blonde chick who always wears pink and drives a pink car. And as far as I can tell, all she does is just get in a pink car and drive it around LA, and somehow she made that a career. Maybe there's more nuance there, but like that's literally all I've ever known her for. Is like it was kind of like Tommy Wiseau in that sense of like I'm just going to buy billboards and put my face on it and somehow start. Except it kind of worked better for Angeline than it did for Tommy Wiseau. So she's in this for like one scene, and you'll know her because she is the blonde chick wearing all pink that shows up in a pink car. And she won the Golden Raspberry for that like one scene she was in. It was the only Golden Raspberry this movie was nominated for. This People at the time were really kind to this movie critically. Like Roger Ebert liked it, Leonard Maltin liked it, like all of the big movie reviewers of the time were like, okay, it's not brilliant. I don't think it should win Oscars, but you're going to have fun if you watch this movie. But the
and,
studio didn't know how to promote it, so it bombed hardcore.
yeah, and like most movies of the '80s, it gets its second life through VHS rentals and airing on cable TV, which would never happen in the age of streaming, unfortunately.
I mean, in the age of streaming, one thing I will say is that, like, currently, as we are recording this, the way we watched this was it's up for free on YouTube. And, like, not like somebody uploaded it and nobody bothered to copyright strike it, which, is true of some things we watched. But no, this was uploaded by Lionsgate. Like, they want you to go watch this movie. It is the good version of this movie.
Ironically, I watched this movie, and then of the recommended videos was Once Bitten, which is also free on YouTube at this point, as of this recording.
Yeah, but I've found it before on like Tubi, on like, all of these sites that are like, hey, you can watch it for free, but you might get some ads in there. Like, this movie is really, really worth throwing money at. So, go give it some love because you can find it probably streaming for free on any number of places. But let's get into what the movie is about, which
So
we've kind of
yeah,
already talked about a little.
so yeah, the you know, I mean, I don't want to go step by step to the movie, but the main premise is we have our three aliens, Mac, Zebo, and Whiplock, are just three men going through the cosmos. You know, it's their job to fly the spaceship. We don't know what their job is. We don't know why they're in the spaceship. It's just that Whiplock makes a comment that, oh, get a job flying a spaceship. You'll see the universe.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we're supposed to think that they're kind of the comedy equivalent of like space truckers or maybe like the Nostromo crew from Aliens, but they're actually aliens, you know? It's like they're just like workaday schlubs whose job is like to drive spaceship from point A to point B and then go back home. But they've been on a particularly long trip from what we can tell, and boy do they want women. There are no women on the crew. It's just the three of them in their spaceship, and they are bored and they want women.
They're watching broadcasts from other worlds of other women, and they are getting anxious.
Yeah, especially Whiplock, who is Jim Carrey's character, and he
Always
just
pelvic
keeps screaming
thrusting.
like, "I want women," you know?
He's always pelvic thrusting the entire movie.
Yeah. And Zebo, Damon Wayans' character, is like, yeah, dude, you can calm down a little bit, but I agree. I would like some women right now, okay? And then you've got Mac, who is like the more intellectual one, and of course that's Jeff Goldblum. You knew it was, yeah.
They call him Captain, so he's kind of the boss of the trio.
But the thing is like there is a great, this movie. It's a very short movie compared to movies today. It's like 90 minutes or so, and there is a lot of fun in it, but there's not a lot of like deep plot. And in fact, we were joking that there is a short on YouTube that has a clip from David Letterman at the time. And it's Jeff Goldblum going on there to be like, I got a new movie coming out. Maybe go see it. I don't really care. And he gives the entire plot of the movie, including spoilers for the entire movie, in the span of one very short sentence. And it's basically like, I'm an alien. I fall to Earth. Gina Davis gives me a makeover, and then we hook up, which is the plot of this movie. If you want to be more crass about it, it's aliens come to Earth and then they come again.
Yep.
Sorry, not sorry, but that is the tone of this movie. It is a ripoff of all those sex comedies, of all the like goofy. I mean, it's called Earth Girls Are Easy. Duh. You kind of know what you're getting into here. And
So
that
yeah,
is the entire plot of the movie.
to kind of go into Valerie's story, Gina Davis is Valerie. She is engaged to her boyfriend, Dr. Ted Gallagher. Valerie is a nail salon worker, and her soon-to-be husband have not been intimate in quite a long time.
Actually, they say it's quite a long time, but we find out later in the movie it's been 2 weeks. Because there's the joke where, like, the Valley Girl with the credit card earrings, which I love it. So it's such a great joke. When
They're my
Julie Brown
dad.
says, "Where did you get those?" They're my dad's. It's like I want to like cosplay as that chick. It's a reference nobody will get, but it's such a great, great costume. But Gina Davis is like, I don't really feel like being in a dance club, and she walks out the door, and the Valley Girl goes like, what's her problem? And Julie Brown whispers in her ear, and the Valley Girl goes, 2 weeks? So, like, basically, they've had a 2-week dry spell right before their wedding, and everybody is freaked out about it. And yes, that is the big problem of this movie, is that Gina Davis has not had sex in 2 weeks.
And Dr. Ted has had a wandering eye. Our first image of him is him coming home with a hickey on his neck.
And trying to hide it from Gina Davis before he gets into bed. Yeah. So Dr. Ted has been kind of stepping out. He claims that he hasn't done anything other than just like kiss a coworker, but then you find out later in the movie that he has been actually dating different coworker that we never see.
One of his nurses, and one is he calls one of the doctors to cover his shift and says, well, just because I'm getting married doesn't mean we can't still date.
So yeah, he has obviously been cheating on Valerie with multiple women by the point we start this movie. It's just that Valerie is very naive and very in love, and she doesn't see it.
And yeah, and Dr. Ted in the pretty much says that he no longer finds Valerie sexually attractive.
Yeah, and so there's a whole scene at the beginning of the movie where they have a musical montage of, oh, well, you just need a makeover, girl. And so they make Gina Davis into this blonde bombshell for like one scene.
Yeah, so like she says that she's going out of town for a stylist convention. And Candy, who is Julie Brown's character, says, hey, skip the convention, stay home. He thinks you're gone. You'll surprise him with this makeover, and you will consummate the relationship. Or
yeah, they're not consummating the relationship. She's like, you're gonna go home and hump like bunnies. Come on.
I'm trying to be nice here.
Not, because that is not the tone of this movie. I'm sorry. It's just not, you know? But, you know, the song that they sing in here, Brand New Girl, while they're giving her the makeover, has one of those lines that you're like, if I could have written that line in my career, I would have hung it up because that is the most genius thing, and it's not even the funniest line in this movie. But the best is like, if you want to be a femme fatale, you can't rest on your L'Oreals, which is such a good joke. I'm like, oh man, give me like a tenth of that genius. And it is not even close to the funniest joke in this movie. That is how good Julie Brown is. That is why we love her. That is why we stan.
Yeah, everything goes to poopy because she comes home, surprises her fiance, who has brought home another woman, and then she just kicks him out.
Yeah, and I want to say something about this, because here's the thing is, at first you think like, oh, Dr. Ted, he's the doctor. In the 80s, you were like, okay, that means he's going to be wealthy and he's going to be, you know, whatever. Except we find out that this is Valerie's house. But what is all the stuff in Valerie's house? It is all of Ted's stuff. Like, Ted has this elaborate fish tank. The only voice on the answering machine message is Ted. Is there a doctor in the house? Well, not right now. Leave a message, you know? Like, it's not even like a cutesy, annoying couples thing. Like, you've reached Ted and Valerie, you know, like, it's not even one of those. It's just like, hey, you've reached the home of Ted. But it turns out when the cops show up later in the movie, like, that is Valerie's house.
You know, false alarm, guy got dumped. Well, you know, never mind. Domestic disagreement.
We'll get to that, because that is like a plot point later. But like, just, I love how weirdly subtle in the background it is of how bad a boyfriend Ted was to Valerie. And
how much in love Valerie is still with Ted, because even after she kicks him out, she is chasing after him as he's driving away. Like, come back, where are you going?
This is that, like, Valerie is very naive. She's not very intellectual, which I'm not saying is like a bad thing. I'm not trying to knock her, but there is a certain type of person who, like, if somebody comes in and they're like, I have been to college and I make more money than you, there is a certain type of woman, especially at that time, but still today, depending on how you were raised. I've known a lot of women who are like, well, he is way out of my league, even though he treats me horribly, because he has more education than me, he makes more money than me, etc., etc. You know? And Valerie is, at the beginning of this movie, that type of girl. She's like, well, I'm just the chick that does nails at the salon. I made it out of high school, but I didn't go to college. You know, like, she's that kind of girl. You know, like, she's that kind of.
We even do get a flashback to them in school during Valerie's little lament here, even though she is clearly lip syncing to someone else's song. but we do get flashbacks in a relationship. How, she was a cheerleader in school and she got so excited with the cheer, she actually knocks Ted off and messes up their play when they're doing a cookout at in their pool, and she ends up knocking the grill into the pool.
Also, who puts their grill literally at the edge of their pool? Like, you've got a little bit of yard there. Put the grill back from the pool a little bit, please. Thank you.
And I think this is kind of Valerie's mindset, is that she's the screw up, not Ted.
Yeah, I kind of would love to know, like, what these scenes were like in reality, because you do get the feeling during this entire musical montage of her singing this, like, really heart-rending breakup song, in a comedy movie, that she is the unreliable narrator of these memories. That's like, he was always so perfect, and I was the one who screwed up. But you can kind of see that, like, he's the football star who's looking at other cheerleaders who are not her. You can see that he's like looking at the hot girl in the pool and doesn't see Valerie running up to him, and that's why the girl gets knocked over. If you actually look at it twice with the idea that like Valerie is taking all the blame in these memories that maybe is not hers, you can see Ted doing douchey things throughout all of her memories that she just doesn't recognize, which I love. I mean, it's it's such a good movie.
Yeah. But as this is going on, back to our alien friends, and now that keep in mind that this was now like 25 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
So back to the aliens, and they are close enough to Earth that they start getting Earth television signals, and they see Earth women, and they even say they're hairless, but they're beautiful.
Actually, they say they're hairless, but they're round. And he makes like boob motion.
He likes them, and he cannot lie.
Yeah, he likes big bazongas and he cannot lie. So, yeah, it's like Whitlock and Zebo are fighting over the image of girls on TV, and then they're like, well, let's see if that's like, let's look at a real girl. And they end up finding Gina Davis laying out by her pool, taking her top off to get some sun, because it's her pool, it's her backyard. She's got a big old privacy fence, even though her nosy neighbor keeps looking over.
Which is the first line of the original Earth Girls Are Easy song. I was nude sunbathing by the pool.
Yeah, so they kept that in, even though even in the full cut, you don't really see anything. She's laying on her stomach when she takes off her top, so it's just to try to get that tan line from the string bikini to go away.
Closest thing you get is the equivalent of a wet T-shirt when the ship splashes in the pool and and splashes her bikini.
Yeah, but the thing is that, like, in trying to ogle Gina Davis, Whitlock and Zebo end up crashing the spaceship, and Mac has to be like, ugh, these two. Okay, we'll deal with it.
I can't take a nap for 5 minutes without you two screwing everything up.
I just want to point out one of the funny things is, like, you get the idea that the little tube that Jeff Goldblum is sleeping in at the beginning is supposed to be like one of those sci-fi, like, oh, we have suspended gravity in this tube or whatever. But you can clearly see the wires that are holding Jeff Goldblum in place. It's really, really bad green screen and stuff throughout this movie, but it fits the aesthetic of the movie, so you don't really, like, get mad at it.
I do like that they went with an actual model of the spaceship for the opening, and when it actually lands in the pool.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that I like that the alien spaceship is small enough to fit in the pool. Like, it's about the size of a car, which Jeff Goldblum later uses that after he's seen Earth cars. He tells Woody, like, no, it's not a spaceship, it's a car. And Woody buys it.
That's why she wanted the pool drink. She drove a car into the pool. Yeah, I had that happen once.
No, I think he says, I have that happen at least once a week. It's a joke, which I love. But The thing is that once the alien spaceship crashes, we see that the aliens use miniaturization technology to shrink themselves, which I love because it's another thing of like, well, we couldn't afford to construct a giant spaceship model, but it also makes sense because of like the amount of fuel needed to get rockets off of a planet with gravity. It's like, well, if you had miniaturization technology, that would make it a lot cheaper to launch stuff into space,
Or are they just small aliens?
I don't think we're supposed to get the idea of like, oh, this is like a Lilo and Stitch kind of thing, where it's like, oh, the alien is small and cute and has a small, cute spacecraft. I think the idea is like their planet is probably very similar to Earth, but they just have shrink technology. That was always my take. I don't know. The idea of pocket-sized cat furry boyfriend, though, is kind of intriguing.
Who knows? Valerie handles figuring out that aliens exist as you would expect.
Yeah, she does shriek and scream, and then but she kind of recovers pretty quickly, which
Well,
good for her.
You're not going to hurt me. That's good.
Yeah, once she figures out that they're not there to like kidnap her or kill her or do anything weird to her, she's like, oh, that was an accident and now you're stuck on Earth and let's figure that out, And this is where we begin the montage of the aliens learning. They go into her house and they like mess with all her stuff. They eat a couple of Ted's exotic fish out of the fish tank. And
one thing I do like in that we talked about the mimicry, how they mimic the earth sounds that, they mimic Valerie's speech. They mimic what they hear on TV. They mimic the cuckoo clock and the phone ringing, and they make it music. And we get yet another musical montage.
yeah, but this one just doesn't have any lyrics. It's just kind of all of these cool, like, found sounds in the house, And they turn it into kind of a rhythm and a melody and stuff, which I really like that scene.
I kind of wish that would have been explored more. Like, have their world be based on music.
That would have been neat. One of the things that I really like about this scene is how much stuff it sets up for later in the movie. Like, they use Jeff Goldblum's kind of now well-known ability to play piano in the film and all, but in the world of the film, Mac the alien learns how to play piano because he's watching an old movie.
Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, Jerry Lewis, yeah. But he sees a guy in the movie playing jazz piano. And then we see him use that skill later to kind of, flirt with Valerie.
I love that the movie that they're watching is The Nutty Professor.
I didn't even clock that was the movie they were watching.
It's the original Nutty Professor with Jerry Lewis. That's why I mentioned it was Jerry Lewis.
I had always been like, well, they're just watching some Jerry Lewis movie, and I had never bothered to look up which one, but that is fascinating.
Because, it's Jekyll and Hyde, obviously. I would love to talk about the original Nutty Professor one day. No offense to the Eddie Murphy version, but,
I mean, when was the first time we talked about doing Earth Girls Are Easy? Like,
when we did The Fly?
Yeah.
When we did The Fly.
And that's been a few years now, so.
Yeah. So them watching The Nutty Professor, and that's that scene of Jerry Lewis kind of becoming the cool guy, and, and talking in that hep cat lingo, and, Jeff Goldblum's Mac kind of catching up on it and repeating it, and, playing the jazz piano. It's very interesting.
Because the stuff that the other two that Whitlock and Zebo pick up on are like goofy commercials and other comedic bits. And of course, Jim Carrey gets to pull out his like, you're tearing me apart, that whole thing. But, they play up to his strengths in that. But I like that they also found something that would play to Jeff Goldblum's strengths while keeping the same conceit, is that Whitlock mostly picks up on these like kitschy phrases from movies and commercials and stuff, which is Jim Carrey's thing, Zebo picks up a lot on the movements of things, which leads to the incredible dance sequence that Damon Wayans absolutely slays. Smooth talking, intellectual throwback, piano playing character that appeals to Matt, which plays into all of Jeff Goldblum's strengths. So I like that they use the exact same foundational building block of like, how do we explain how these aliens eventually learn English and blend in, into setting up these three actors with their own wildly disparate strengths at the same time.
Yeah, it is amazing how this movie fits their, especially what we know about them at this point in their careers. So yeah, and the aliens are, we haven't really described the aliens. They say the humans are hairless, but yeah, they are head to toe with fur. Mac has blue fur, Zebo has yellow fur, and Whiplock has red fur.
I mean, I kind of did references a little bit when I was like pocket-sized cat furry boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what they are at the start of the movie. But Valerie realizes that Ted is going to come by the house later that night to try to apologize, but I think just mostly to like get his stuff. And she's like, yeah, that the aliens have already destroyed. And she immediately starts thinking, oh my God, how do I hide these aliens? Because she has hid them in her house and called Woody, the pool guy, over to drain the pool so that they can dry out the spaceship and repair it so that they can leave. And she's like, I thought it was just going to be me. It was going to take, like, Woody says, like, oh, the pool will be finished draining by tomorrow and everything. And then after the ship has dried out, the repairs should probably be minor. And she was like, okay, so if I can just keep these guys hidden in my house for like 24 hours, I'm golden. And then Ted's like, I want to come over and talk about our relationship. Won't you take me back and everything? And she's like, crap, I've got 3 aliens. And as she tells Julie Brown's Candy in the next scene, she's like, Ted is like totally a doctor. And if he sees them, he's gonna know they're not human. As if the normal person seeing a 6-foot tall, head to toe furry cat person wouldn't be like, I'm guessing you're not from round these parts,
Yeah. So yeah, they shave them completely and give them makeovers. And
one of the best reveals in cinema history. Yet another hill I will die on. That reveal of like Julie Brown coming out and being like, so do you want to see what I did with the crazy fur-covered aliens? You're not going to believe this. And then like 3 of the hottest guys you've ever seen in your life walk out.
The quote shock, I don't know if you want to call it shock, but like the reveal of Zebo being black under his fur.
And when he walks out for his big reveal, he mimics Julie Brown. They just play the audio back, it's another one of those, but he mimics Julie Brown finding out that he's black underneath his fur. She's like, oh my God, you're like totally black. Which I love.
The reveal of Mac had to be a reference to The Fly.
My God, yeah, because they do like the fog, and he hasn't put his shirt on yet, which the other 2 are fully dressed, and like then it's like Jeff Goldblum being like, no, I'm gonna,
Even Gina Davis's reaction is very similar to her same reaction to the teleporter in The Fly.
And like he's already got pants on. Boo, I say. But he is at least shirtless for the beginning of the scene, and it is peak Jeff Goldblum in the 80s, when you want a nice shirtless Jeff Goldblum.
And Valerie is completely smitten with Mac's new look.
As I think the entire audience is.
It's Jeff Goldblum, so, This part here.
It's still Jeff Goldblum underneath all the fur, so I would have gone for blue furry Mac.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme.
We go back and listen to like our second episode and me talking about the Beast versus Prince Adam. Yeah. The film that birthed an entire millennial generation of furries.
Here, and I sent you this clip. we have a deleted scene here
Indeed.
because originally this was going to lead to yet another musical number, which was Julie Brown singing "I Like 'Em Big and Stupid," which is her referencing the aliens. That, hey, you got hot guys, they may not know a lot, but they're good for a good time. So they're in Valerie's car, and just Julie Brown is singing "I Like 'Em Big and Stupid."
And we do see most of this music video because it is shot. This is like one of the like 3 scenes in the movie that is shot completely like a music video. And if you've seen the outtake / music video that they actually showed on MTV at the time, you can see which parts got used in the movie. And there is even one part where they pull up alongside a group of like muscle dudes, and Julie Brown is hanging out the side of the car talking to them, but we don't hear any dialogue. And the shot they use in the movie has like, it quickly edits to like Gina Davis saying something, but if you look at the wide shot, it's actually Julie Brown leaning out of the car and lip syncing to that song.
Now, the song is played in the movie. They just play it during the club scene.
Yeah, and I Like 'Em Big and Stupid is maybe my second favorite Julie Brown song. My first favorite Julie Brown song comes later in the movie. Excuse me.
No love for Homecoming Queen. Wow.
Well, the thing is that even by the time I was a teenager watching this, Homecoming Queen had not aged well. And I mean, we don't have to talk about any of the rest of that song other than the title of the song for everyone to understand why that song did not age well. There are certain things that can continue to be jokes, and there are certain things that were at one time considered something that you could kind of make jokes about that now you can't. See a recent Zendaya movie for that.
I think Julie Brown agrees because I did look up the Homecoming Queen music video, and someone did make a comment about there used to be a time where this was satire, and she did like that comment.
Yeah, and it's very obvious from Julie Brown's career that like everything she does is satirical. And there is not really any malice in her work. Some of it is biting satire, granted, but unlike, like I said with the Pauly Shore thing, when you listen to Julie Brown's kind of oeuvre, it's a very tongue-in-cheek and very like observational comedy put to music. She's not really doing anything out of a sense of like, I'm going to be dark, edgy comic here. That wasn't her thing. It was her being satirical, but unfortunately, because of the world we lived in, you can't really listen to that song anymore in the environment in which it was originally created. And so it comes off as a lot darker and a lot meaner and a lot more like dark, edgy, edgelord kind of humor than she ever meant it to be, I'm sure.
So let's get back to the club scene because we've talked a little bit about it. There's Zebo getting into that great dance fight with the guy because Zebo dances with a girl at the club, and her boyfriend comes in and saying, "Hey, that's my girl. You can't dance with her, and you can't dance like this." And there's this great dance. Words cannot do justice this dance battle scene with Zebo.
Yeah, this is one of those things that you just, even if you don't watch the full movie, you need to look up just this one scene because everything about it is visual except for the line where the guy comes up and says, why be with a zero when you can dance with a hero? And then Zebo screws it up when he tries to mimic it later.
I want to be a zero. I want to be a zero.
Yeah, but
And
there is a moment in there right at the beginning where the slick dancer comes up, who is played by Wayne Crescendo Ward and played wonderfully, even though this is the only scene in the movie he's in. He will go in there and do these moves, and then you can see Zebo watching him and looking, and if you've ever watched dancers learning choreography for the first time, it's exactly what Damon Wayans is doing in the background. He's seeing the moves and he's like, okay, so he puts his arms there and then he takes that step and then he does this little twirl, and you can see him like memorizing the guy's choreography on the spot. And then he goes down and he perfectly replicates it and then adds to it.
It's that perfect use of the mimicry ability that they've already shown in the movie.
Yeah, but I do like that it's not just that like Zebo can suddenly dance. I do like that there's about a minute where he has to like watch this guy. And you can see him in the background being very calculating and like moving his arms and figuring it out. And then he's like, okay, I've got it now. Let me go jump in here and impress this chick. And I like that he impresses the chick so much that she's like, I'll dance with you both. And we know she's not meaning dance.
She's going home with both of them tonight.
They're going to somebody's house and they're all going together. But yeah, Crescendo is not down with that. He's like, no, you're my girl. You're not, he is not part of this picture. There is no devil's three-way for Crescendo in this movie.
There's a lot of three-way jokes in this movie.
There really are. I had not remembered how many jokes there are about three-ways in this movie.
There's the first three-way joke, which the nurse that Dr. Ted brings home thinks that she's been brought home to be their third between Ted and Valerie, which she's not into. We have the three-way joke at the club, which you just talked about. And we get another three-way joke later.
Let's not tell that one yet, because I really like that reveal.
So we'll come back to this. And Whiplock, we already mentioned the tongue thing, and he's making out with Julie Brown. Go, Jim.
Yeah, and then I know. I don't know who I'm more jealous of in that situation, because Julie Brown in the 80s could get it too, like.
Yeah.
So you're like, I don't know, I kind of want to be in the middle of that sandwich. But the funny thing is, like, I love that he like really is just making out with her, and you can see that, like, to the point that she has lost the ability to breathe when Valerie interrupts them at all. And then, like, when Julie Brown comes up for air, she's like, I want to have his babies.
He is obsessed with her for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he keeps asking people where candy is, but everybody keeps misunderstanding and thinks he wants like actual sugary, snacks.
But the main point here is Mac and Valerie. As Mac has gone all nutty professor with the jazz piano. He has taken he gets in the middle of two guys having an argument and they're going to go outside to have a fight. So the guy throws his jacket and Mac catches, and it's a nice blue sequin jacket.
Yeah, I love how Mac just locks into the perfect jacket. And what's so funny is, like, knowing what we know now about Jeff Goldblum, that is entirely his aesthetic.
It's probably just his jacket.
Yeah, he probably brought that jacket from home.
I'm wearing this jacket in this movie. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Look, this jacket cost me $3,000. It's perfectly tailored, and I'm going to wear it in this movie. Knowing him, he probably still wears that jacket on stage. Actually, I've seen him recently wearing a jacket much like that. We have a friend who has performed once or twice with Jeff Goldblum's band, and some of their pictures, Jeff Goldblum is wearing a jacket suspiciously similar to the one in this movie. So it might have just literally been his jacket. If it wasn't at the beginning of the movie, it definitely was by the end of it. There is a nice little bit of dialogue here between Valerie and Mac when she realizes it's him playing the piano, and she's like, how do you know how to do that? And they get into a conversation about it. And she says to him that she thought that Ted was Mr. Right. And then she has to explain the concept of Mr. Right to this alien. And she's like, it's the guy you dream of when you're a little girl, who you will go everywhere with them. You will do anything for them. nothing will separate the two of you. And you're like, oh my goodness, girl, you are such a hopeless romantic, you poor thing. And then she says that he probably has a girlfriend back on his planet, which we finally learn the name of in this scene, which is Gisela, according to Mac. And she says, yeah, back on your planet, Gisela, you probably have a girlfriend. And he looks at her and he says, not a Mr. Right girlfriend. Which I've always loved the phrasing of that line. Like, Mac has yet to find his quote unquote Mrs. Right. He just doesn't know that name.
His, for lack of a better term, true love.
Yeah. And, they kind of have a moment, but then, oops, Zebo is in a fist fight in the club and Whiplock is about to suffocate Julie Brown and we've got to go save all the other characters in this movie.
Love how Gina Davis just goes there and just pinches Jim Carrey's nose, hoping that'll work.
Yeah, one of you is going to have to come up for air sometime or both of you are going to die.
What a way to go.
Yeah, I know. Like, please let that be the way I go. But the thing is that they then go home and they have a confrontation with Ted because Ted is there and he has called the cops because the place is absolutely ransacked and Gina Davis is nowhere to be found. So he's like, oh my goodness, somebody broke in and kidnapped Valerie. So he calls the cops. And then Valerie walks in and says, like, oh, these three guys, no, I won a contest on MTV to hang out with a rock band for a weekend. And, well, rock bands, they like to smash hotel rooms and oops. And the cops are like, okay, you're going to get booked for false report because, she's fine. And they call it in and they're like, guy's girlfriend left him for a rock band. And they're like, oh, yeah, another one of those. Because I guess that's just another day in the valley in the 80s,
I love these cop guys. Because this is not the last time we see these two cops.
Yeah, this is one of the few movies where I'm like, those cop characters, they were kind of cool.
The odds are you are not going to bump into the same cop twice. But the fact that they do bump into these same cop characters later on.
Well, I think in LA or Chicago, hint, hint, you're probably not going to run into the same cop twice. If you live in a place like where I live, you're going to run into the same cop all the time because he eats lunch at the Waffle House. But the thing about it is that after they get rid of Ted, via the cops, Valerie is very upset. I mean, this is like 24 hours after she found out that her supposedly perfect boyfriend has been cheating on her. And, Jeff Goldblum kind of tells the other two, like, hey, give us a minute. I'm going to go, see what's up with her. And walks in and he's like, hey, are you sad? Talk to me about it and everything.
Like he is genuinely concerned for her.
Yeah, and I like that it's played in the movie as like Mac is genuinely concerned for Valerie. This is not like a ploy to get into her bedroom.
Yeah, like we get the point that these are three lonely men who just happen to be aliens who are trying to find women companions. But in this moment, he is not trying to get into her pants. He is literally just saying, hey, what is wrong?
You can tell that this is a movie that was written by a woman because this is the sexiest moment in the movie is Jeff Goldblum being like, hey, do you want to talk about it? And this is the thing that leads to them hooking up is him doing the thing that we see Ted refusing to do at the beginning of the movie, which is like care about her feelings at all.
Listen to her.
Yeah. And so that's how Jeff Goldblum gets him some in this movie is just by like being a dude who listens.
Like, but he also, I mean, like, she talks about, sex and all of that. And like, what's sex? And she has to explain to him what sex is. I'm guessing that obviously that is what they have in their world. They just don't call it that.
Well, and also this is where we get the title drop of the movie, which is she says, it's kind of the thing of like they're getting closer and everything. You could tell they're about to kiss. And she says, I don't want you to get the idea that Earth girls are easy. And he says, "What is easy?" And then she said, "This is easy." And she just like jumps him. And we have like a whole sex scene montage.
We have to talk about the love touch because we skipped over the love touch up until this point.
Well, because it hasn't really been a plot point until this point, you know?
Yeah, we first see the love touch that the Mac does it on Gina Davis's cat because the cat is acting up.
Yeah, the cat is hissing at them. It's like, hey, I am the cat here. There are not supposed to be 6-foot bipedal cats. Like, you know.
So it's
I
basically
love the cat in this movie, by the way. The cat in this movie is amazing.
so like it's the equivalent of giving this cat a lot of catnip. And they probably did give this cat a lot of catnip for this scene.
Yeah. The thing about it is though, is that we see him start to use it on her and then but it's not you would think like when I first watched this movie, like even though I was, you know, a teenager when I first saw this movie, you know, bits of the culture already seep into your brain. And when I first watched this movie and they set up the love touch with the cat, and then it's like, well, yeah, it's Jeff Goldblum and he's really hot and like she's really into him and stuff. And then he uses the love touch on her, but they find a way to do it where like you get the idea that this is just part of the mating process for this species. And it's not like, because there is a very different cut of this movie that could be done where he has roofied her.
That's a different movie that recently came out involving wishing.
Yeah. But I'm not kidding. Like in another edit of this movie, you could make that like the alien comes down and falls in love with the Earth Girl, and that's his way of getting her, and it's all kind of like icky and non-consensual. But they have him wait to use it on her until she has already instigated.
Like she is
Very
kissing him.
enthusiastic.
She is kissing him, and he says, "Okay, let's do this. We are doing this now."
In that context, it really, you know, you can probably say that like if communication barriers weren't what they were, it's probably better that he be like, "Hey, humans know about the love touch, right?" But she is already like enthusiastically going after him, and you get the idea that this is just part of their mating process on their planet. Like, I have a partner, I want to please them. This is just another move, you know? And I like that. Once again, movie written by a woman. What a breath of fresh air. Where it's like it's a bunch of stuff that could be very problematic that somehow is not in this movie because of the way that it is presented. Love it.
And there is, you know, we get the nightmare with her alien nightmare, but afterwards there is kind of a double feeling there. Like she seems satisfied after the encounter, but also there's a bit of regret because she kind of has some feelings still for Ted, but at the same time, it's Jeff Goldblum.
Well, and to quote a much worse comedy, they were on a break. You know?
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's like you had broken up to the point of you had the cops remove him from your house just a few minutes ago, girl. Like, please do not feel guilty about this. But the thing I like about we have the trippy sex scene that's not really very graphic or sexual. Like, it's kind of like you know, it's like a joint trip, you know? It's like the two of them have, just dropped some very pleasant pharmaceuticals and they're going on a little love trip, you know? That's the way it's filmed. It's not filmed like a traditional sex scene, yeah.
It is almost, you know, it's a very romantic love scene. I wouldn't call it a sex scene because it's not a sex scene. It is a love scene.
Yeah, it's very fantastical and being immediately hard cutting into her anxiety dream, which if you look at the anxiety dream all on its own, it really is more about just the idea of she has not fully sat with the idea of like, oh, humans are not alone in this universe, and now there are aliens on my planet, rather than any kind of like body horror that she's like, maybe I am pregnant with an alien child or something, which again, it would logically follow in this movie. There is a different version of this movie that could have spawned off from that idea. But the way that they film her anxiety dream is, one, you're not even sure if they had sex because of the way the love scene is filmed. It's not filmed like a traditional sex scene. And then it immediately goes into her anxiety dream once she falls asleep after. And but the anxiety is all about just getting this new information into her head. Like, we are not alone in the universe, aliens are here, and her mind is bringing up all of this like scary 50s B movie thing interspersed with all of that gorgeous French expressionist, Beauty and the Beast stuff, which part of it is also filmed like a horror film.
Yeah, and her feelings for Ted, her newfound feelings for Mac. She's not sure where her heart truly lies.
Yeah, and that sets up like the final act of the movie is her not being sure, like, which of these two guys she really wants to be with. And I like that the way that we're not exactly sure if they even had anything approximating sex until she wakes up from the dream and there is like naked Jeff Goldblum in the bed next to her. And you're like, oh, no, they actually did. This is a fully consummated relationship now. Okay, we're cool. Because she wakes up and then she like starts talking to him, and again the first thing he does is be like, hey, are you cool with what we did last night? Like, it's weird and alien the way he asks it, but that is what he's asking. And he's checking in with her to make sure like she is 100% okay with like everything that went down the night before, because she seemed into it at the time, but love touch and humans. So they have that little kind of morning after talk, and they're all like, yeah, I'm cool, but she's like, but I was fully ready to marry Ted. Like, we were engaged. She's trying on the wedding dress literally in the first scene in the movie. And so they're kind of talking about it. He's like, hey, I understand, if it was just a one-off thing, all right, cool. And then that's when they get interrupted by Whitlock and Zebo being like, we want to know what went on in there last night. There were some interesting noises. Let's see if we can get a peek.
Mac, we want details.
Come on out and talk to your boys, Mac. Come on.
But yeah.
But then after Mac tells them to scram, they get interrupted by Woody, who shows back up and is like, hey, I've come to see if the pool's drained yet. And he gets talking to Whitlock and Zebo, and they decide they're going to go to the beach and catch some waves.
But also by this point, the ship has dried out and it's ready to go home.
Well, they're ready to work on it, and Mac is like, oh yeah, it's just going to be like, one or two quick fixes, And you just see like Jeff Goldblum on top of the spaceship with a wrench in his hand. I'm like, that is such a weirdly specific image. And it's strange it happened more than once.
Jeff Goldblum working on his car. I'm sure somebody saw that image in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah. And I'm just mad it wasn't me. The thing is, though, is that they do have a pretty fun time here of like, let's put the three male like comedy characters together. So we've got that team up now of Woody and Zebo and Whiplock, and they're going to go to the beach and they're going to have fun. And then I like, as a throwaway line, which was added in post because of the story we told about Julie at the beginning, of him going like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, they're having like a beach blonde contest on the beach today. And then we smash cut into the greatest scene in this movie and the greatest Julie Brown song ever written, Because I'm Blonde. I love this song so much, even though I'm not a blonde. I'm a purple.
There are two generations that know this song. You either know, okay, depending on your age, you know this song from one of two things. You either know this song from this movie, or you know this song because you were an anime fan and you watched the anime music video of this song to Sailor Moon.
I had no idea there was an anime song of this an anime video of this song to Sailor Moon.
Yes, yes. So yeah,
Because I am not into anime or Sailor Moon. So.
because Sailor Moon's blonde and she's dumb, and it kind of works for the song.
Yeah, but I love this movie so much, and you know, I said earlier about the thing about like that line earlier not even being the funniest line in the movie, but the funniest line in the movie is actually because in the song "'Cause I'm a Blonde," which is the little spoken riff, which is like, you know, I just want to say that being chosen as this month's Miss August is like a compliment I'll remember for as long as I can. Right now, I'm a freshman in my 4th year at UCLA, but my goal is to become a veterinarian because I love children. Which is like the greatest monologue in the history of ever, and it's in the middle of the song.
So it's like, I do like that it's kind of presented as a dream sequence because, like I said, Whitlock is obsessed with candy. And he says there's going to be blonde girls there. So the only girl that he really knows of is Candy. So he's kind of fantasizing Candy as a blonde based on whatever music videos he probably watched on MTV at Valerie's house.
Yeah.
That's the only way it makes sense for me in the movie. Otherwise, because, you know, it's just, here's Julie Brown singing a song in her movie.
Well, honestly, though, like, you could kind of see Candy being that girl, though, who would just go out to the beach and enter in a beach blonde contest. Like, maybe it's her day off of work, the salon is closed or something, you know, and she's like, what should I do today? I know, I'll go out to the beach. Oh, right, they're having that beach blonde contest, you know, like.
Which again, it's really funny because, you know, Julie Brown is a redhead, so she's clearly wearing a blonde wig. And then she just tears off the blonde wig of the other contestants.
Yeah, I love like how bitchy that is of her being like, no, you're a brunette. I'm a redhead, but it's okay if I'm wearing a wig.
Which makes me wonder, had this gone the original direction with Julie Brown starring in it, since the first big musical number is the makeover into a blonde, would she remain a blonde for the entire movie and then sing this song?
It is kind of fascinating because one of the things we haven't talked about, but it's kind of important that we talk about it here, is, you know, this was always meant to be a full musical, and then it got truncated because of, you know, studio interference. And later on, after this movie kind of became a cult classic in the early 2000s, they did try to make it into a stage musical. And Valerie was going to be Kristen Chenoweth, who is a blonde. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kristen Chenoweth is a very petite woman. Yeah. And she has that Valley Girl look to her. And the only problem is that that show never took off because the timing was wrong, and by the timing was wrong,
September 2001 was the first performance. Fill in the rest.
specifically September the 16th, 2001. So yeah, 'Cause I'm a Blonde is not really where the country's at the time. And apparently it was like a complete jukebox musical. Like, apparently Julie Brown didn't write extra new songs. They just did, like, some of the songs from there are like, Let's Get Physical and Funky Town, you know?
And whatever, again, all the more familiar Julie Brown songs already existing. I think Brand New Girl was written specifically for the movie because I do not see that song in any of her albums.
Yeah, I think Brand New Girl is for the movie. I know that here's the thing though, is that according to the musical numbers, if you look up the way the stage show was meant to go, Candy is still the one that sings 'Cause I'm a Blonde. And you know why? Because at the time, Julie Brown was still playing Candy.
I do like that she did get, reprised the role for the stage for however short that stage run was.
Yeah,
Which,
which I think was like 3 shows or something. It was like really, really short, unfortunately.
I mean, I think the movie can work as a musical. Again, it's almost already a musical in the film format. I think using Julie's songs, that are already in the movie,
You're using musical in the Broadway sense. It is a musical in the Hollywood sense.
yeah. But I'm thinking more of, the traditional Broadway musical. Maybe if they did more original, if Julie Brown had written more original songs for the stage thing. I'm not saying, again, September 2001 is not the right time for this, but maybe like 2010 or even now. I mean, considering, the Lost Boys just had a,
Yeah, I mean, we've had a
why
Clueless musical, we've had Lost Boys the musical, we've had Legally Blonde the musical. I mean, come on.
Mean Girls musical? Why not
Mean
do,
Girls
I mean,
musical.
there's a Toxic Avenger musical.
Yeah.
Why not go with the cult classic and give us, Earth Girls Are Easy as a full Broadway musical? I'd be interested in it.
I mean, honestly, it would be an amazing show, in my opinion, even if it was just like they originally planned it, just a jukebox musical of like 80s MTV hits, But I am gonna say that, like, you can look up this scene like as its own music video because it is, I think, really the final scene in the movie that is shot like a music video.
Well, it was shot during a reshoot, so it probably was the final scene shot for the movie.
Well, no, I mean, in the timeline of the movie, like as you're watching the movie, this is the point in the movie where, like, okay, after that, you're not going to get any more like big musical numbers shot like a music video. Everything from this point on is the director adding like the B-52s song that we hear 2 scenes later and stuff like that, He was the one that kinda came up with that from what I've read. And so, we have the whole little scene on the beach, and then we've gotta continue this, like, Woody, Zebo, Whiplock, trio that we've got going on, and they gotta gas up before he drops them back at Valerie's place, And this is one of those things, this is the only point in the movie where I'm like, if this were made today, this scene either could not happen or it's a wildly different scene.
So yeah, there's a kid with a squirt gun that looks very realistic.
And when we were growing up, our squirt guns looked very realistic. Like, we were in the point in time where it was like, oh, we're going to put like a little orange thing on the barrel to be like, this isn't a real gun, this is a toy gun. And you know that because there's a plastic orange thing on the front. And now they have to be like, this thing does not look like any gun ever manufactured on Earth. It is obviously a toy. It all looks like a super soaker, you know?
I mean, this is 88, so like OG Megatron toy.
Yeah, I am so mad because, like, there used to be one of those in the comic book shop in town, and I did not have the money to buy it before somebody else purchased it because it was way out of my price range when I was a little kid. But, like, I wanted that Transformer, and I still want that Transformer now, and it's like thousands of dollars. So,
But anyway, Zebo takes the gun and Woody tells him, "Hey, why don't you go into the shop and get us some snacks for the ride?" Now, of course, here's a black man carrying a gun into the store and says, "Give us bread."
well, yeah, it is funny the way that I love the way that the script uses language. Because Woody specifically says, "Hey, go get us stuff for some sandwiches." And then the 2 aliens go like, "Stuff for sandwiches." And he goes like, "Yeah, bread and junk." And they go, "Bread and junk, bread and junk," and they just start repeating it to each other and laughing. And then they walk inside and Whiplock steps up first and he goes, "Give us bread." And then Zebo, looking like a black man, you know, walks up carrying what looks like a real pistol and says, Yeah, we need junk. So, of course, you hear those two phrases in that context, and the guy behind the counter is immediately like, okay, two drug addicts have come to rob my 7-Eleven, you know? And so there's like a whole little scene, but this is like, of course, a scene that hopefully they would just cut it from the movie, or they would give it to the context of like Whitlock walked in by himself or something, you know? But the funny part of this scene to me, even today, is that if you have the captions on, the whole time, we haven't really talked about this, but the whole time there is this fake alien language. And we're not talking about like they actually created a conlang for this. They're just saying gibberish.
There's a
But
point where there's a point where they're just yelling at each other, and we get subtitles of what they're saying.
yeah, but all three of these actors are just like splurting gibberish the whole time. It's like blah, blah, bleep blorp, whatever. And all until this scene. Because according to the captions, the last thing Zebo says before they walk out, because Whitlock says, thank you too much, and then walks out. And before Zebo walks out, according to the captions, it says, speaking alien language. And that is all the caption says. But what Damon Wayans actually says is, Assalamu alaikum. If you listen to it, it's very quick, and it's kind of underneath like the guy behind the register going like, oh, okay, just get out or whatever. But what Damon Wayans actually says to the guy is the only time the alien language actually has, so far as I could tell watching through it again for this rewatch, anything that is actually any Earth language in it. And it's because Damon Wayans turns around and says, Assalamu alaikum. And instead of saying it, it's because like the caption says speaking alien language. And I'm like, I hate that deaf people don't get to be in that joke. Because it's a hilarious joke.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever he says in their language just happens to sound like Assalamu alaikum.
It probably was an ad lib by Damon Wayans anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it probably was, but it is the funniest part just because of the disconnect between what's going on and what the caption says is going on. But they leave, and they end up getting in. This is the point where Angeline shows up, and she's like, hi guys, could you move? I need to get some gas for my car and whatever. And despite all the other pumps being empty, she has to use that one, of course.
Because she's a blonde? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the only thing is that it's just Whitlock and Zebo in the car, because Woody has gone inside, and the guy that was working there is like, dude, get down. There's robbers, and they're armed, and they're still here. And he's like, oh no, my buddies are outside. And he's like, no, you can't go save them. And they have like a whole thing. So Woody gets separated from the two of them. And then like the two of them are in Woody's car, and she's like, can you move? And immediately Jim Carrey's, as Whitlock is like, blonde woman asking me a thing. She kind of looks like Candy. Okay. And so he tries to move the car, but instead of going backwards, he goes forwards and rams into her. They don't show the cars touching. They didn't like get another pink convertible to wreck on screen. So it's all editing tricks of like, oh no, my car, And so that's like when she calls the cops, and the guy behind the counter has pressed the silent alarm, and so cops show up, and it's the same two cops. Of course it is. We can only afford so many actors in this movie.
And by this point, Mac has caught up with the guys at the gas station, and the cop said, well, we were told that one of them was a blonde guy, and so Woody and Mac end up getting arrested for the crime.
Yeah, and then Valerie has followed them there, and she's like, well, arrest me too. And they're like, we can't arrest you, miss. You haven't done anything, which is a very uncop thing to say. But she's like, oh, really? I haven't done anything? And she picks up the fender from Woody's vehicle that fell off when the crash happened, because Zebo and Whitlock have sped off, at this point. And she picks up the fender, and she just wails on the cop car with it, which I love.
At the police!
Yeah. It's like, that is some pretty good praxis, girl. You go. But and then it's also that she can stay with Mac, of course. But this is where we get the final threesome joke.
Yeah, well, at this point, Zebo and Whiplock have kind of crashed a car into Randy's Donuts because they got to get all of the famous LA landmarks.
Yeah,
I'm
the
just
Griffith
glad.
Observatory, the Randy's Donuts, yeah.
I'm just glad Robert Downey Jr. wasn't in the donut.
Yeah, it's a little too early for that. I think Robert Downey Jr. was also in the Slammer at this point, which is where Max said they're going. But the thing is, though, is that Valerie comes up with an escape plan.
So yeah, the escape plan is that she wants Mac to use the love touch on the cops because if they fall in love with her, they'll do whatever she says.
Mac immediately does not understand this, which comes into the first threesome joke in this scene, which he's like, wait, you want sex with the cops? And she's like, no, I want to manipulate the cops, make them fall in love with me, and I will manipulate them. Because, they're all living in that headspace of like, well, there's a pretty girl in the car and 3 guys, and like, if you use a love touch on them, what's gonna happen?
Yep. And Mac uses the love touch, again, very, very uncomfortable using this love touch in this way. Like, this is not what the love touch was intended for lack of a better term. But he uses it anyway, and doesn't go Valerie's way because turns out these cops are closeted gay men.
They're in love with each other.
Yes, their entire demeanor changes because they have the tough guy cop exterior, and forgive me, Kiki, forgive me. But then they go into like the stereotypical flamboyant gay boys.
Because it is the 80s. But I do love again what the script does here, because the cop that gets the love touch, and here's the point where this is legit. Because Mac is shown only to touch one of the 2 cops. And he's the one that makes the move first. And he doesn't think, I'm going to make a move on Valerie, or even I'm going to make a move on sexy Jeff Goldblum. His first thought is, I am going to finally compliment my partner. And he turns around and says, your eyes, they're almost the shade of Liz Taylor Violet. Which is such a gay reference for me.
We haven't mentioned it yet, but Julie Brown did get her start in the San Francisco area, despite being from LA.
I mean, she's got a great, and she is well loved. I mean, this whole movie is camp, and it's a love letter to, that kind of aesthetic. But also, Candy was originally supposed to be a guy. I mean, probably with a different name, although his name might have been Candy as well. But, it was supposed to be Valerie's gay bestie. And the movie works almost the same way there, although I kind of wonder, like, if it were made today, like if Julie Brown had been writing it today and she was like, I'm going to write this part and I'm going to play Valerie and we're going to have Valerie have a gay best friend. I do wonder if Whiplock and the gay best friend fall in love in the same way that Whiplock and Candy do, if it is being written for the first time today. Because I think that would be awesome.
So yeah, the 2 cops finally have this opportunity to confess their feelings for each other, and they hook up in the back of the cop car. And I love Jeff Goldblum kind of passing by, says, "Hope it works out with you 2."
Well, and Valerie says, good luck on buying that house. That's her parting shot. And then the 2 of them are like, the 2 cops, the one that has not had the love touch is like, weren't they a nice couple? And the other one's like, yeah. And then the 2 of them look at each other and say the only cop thing they say during this whole movie, which is, let's go shake some people down. In other words, like, they're going to go extort random citizens to get the money to buy their dream house, which I'm like, okay, now we're back in reality. It's the most real thing in this entire movie.
Yeah, so they've ended up in the hospital because of the car accident that Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans were in. And it just happens to be that Dr. Ted is the doctor that's going to be taking care of them in the emergency room. He already doesn't like them, and he's being very rough with them
Yeah.
in the emergency.
He hears one thing which we haven't brought up, which is that Valerie learned in the kind of morning after scene with Mac. She's laying against his chest and she says, "How weird. It almost sounds like you have two heartbeats." And he goes, "Yeah, of course, don't you?" And she's like, "No, we only have one heart."
Oh, wait. An alien with two hearts that travels in his ship that is bigger on the inside?
Yeah. Like I said, Julie Brown's got the know, right? So
Yeah.
we we get to the thing where, of course, in doing the physical, Dr. Ted is like, "Wait, I'm hearing two heartbeats on both of you," and he immediately sedates the two of them and is like, "I'm gonna be on the cover of Time magazine." He's singing a little song to himself, which is not a full musical number. It's just, doing what I just did, just making up a little song. And he's like singing to himself about how he's gonna be like super rich and famous and on the cover of all the magazines and stuff. And Valerie and Mac walk in and they're like, "Oh wait, we can't walk in there because they only let patients and medical staff back there." And then Valerie sees the girl from the beginning of the movie, the nurse from the beginning of the movie that was gonna sleep with Ted. And she's like, "Mac, we're gonna have to do something evil to somebody, but I'm okay with that." Mac's like, All right." And so they go and they pretend to take this girl hostage. And
With the toy gun from earlier, the same
yeah,
squirt gun.
yeah. And she's like, yeah, it's real. I have a weapon, and we're taking you hostage. And then they push her into a patient room where is a guy in a full body cast, and Gina Davis says, "Strip." And the nurse looks at the patient. She's like, "Push the call button, go for help." And he's like, "Not a chance in hell," which is kind of the only like funny part of that. And like, you want to feel bad for her, but I do feel bad for her because we don't know if she knew Ted was engaged until the moment that she came into the house.
Again, she thought Ted was single, so they were going to have a one-off,
And
fling.
she even burns him when we come back, because we see Ted later and he's talking to another nurse and all, and he's like, "Hey, go get this patient room ready or whatever." And the nurse is like, "All right, Dr. Love," which is what Ted had called himself when he was like trying to come on to the nurse earlier. And so she was like so disgusted with him that she went back to the hospital and was like, "Let me tell you what happened on my date with Dr. Ted last night," or should I say Dr. Love. So I love that she's a girl's girl. And I do feel bad for her in this scene because, like, she's obviously a girl's girl because she immediately went back to the hospital and was like, "I have to warn you all about the skeevy doctor," which, good for you, girl.
She did not know that Ted was engaged. And it's like, she is an innocent in all this. This is why, Valerie says she has to do something evil to someone. But it's like, what did
But
this girl...
Valerie, like, this is seriously like within 48 hours of seeing her man throw himself at this woman. So even though it's not the woman's fault, you can understand where the animosity comes from.
Yeah. So yeah, now Valerie and Mac in their stolen doctor and nurse garb try to get Zebo and Whiplock out of the emergency room before Dr. Ted dissects them. But
And I do like the way that they do this, is that they use that like precise mimicry ability for, the doctor says like, "Nurse, listen to them, two heartbeats and everything." And she listens and she goes, "I'm sorry, they sound normal to me, doctor." And he's like, "No, I heard two heartbeats." And she's like, "Well, check me." And he listens to her
there's
heart
a
and
funny thing. I just noticed this on the rewatch. I've never noticed this before. Look at Jeff Goldblum during that scene. He is pointing to his chest and then pointing to her,
yeah,
saying,
he's kind of prompting her. And you're right. I didn't notice it either until the rewatch, but they use his mimicry ability so that Mac gets up right behind and mimics the sound of 2 heartbeats into Ted's ear while he's listening to Valerie's heart. And he's like, "Oh no." And she's like, "Listen to your own heart, doctor." And he listens to his own heart. And of course, Mac is still behind him doing that noise. And he's like, "No, it sounds like I have 2 heartbeats too. I must be hallucinating. Oh no, I've got to get out of here, you know."
Yeah, and then we have all three. Now, at this point, Zebo and Whitlock have woken up, and all three of them do their mimicry, and it just like at Valerie's house, this becomes a musical number.
Yeah, except it's musical sounds that would happen in a operating room, you know? It's all the beeps from the monitors and various tools being moved around and all that kind of stuff. Again, really cool. Like bravo to whoever scored this movie. But we're in the final 5-10 minutes of the movie here, and they go out and Valerie's like, "Hey, I see Ted's car in the parking lot, I've got keys for it and we can steal it and everything, get back home." But Ted comes walking out because he's still certain he's hallucinating, and he sees Valerie in the parking lot, and he's like, "Valerie, let's just go home, and we can immediately go to Vegas. I need a vacation. We'll get married in Vegas. We'll have a fun vacation, and I'll stop working so hard. I totally love you and everything." And for a second, when you're first watching this movie, you're like, "Oh, okay, we believe him. He's had a traumatic event."
Scared straight.
Yeah, all the nurses at work now know he's Dr. Love, and so he's not gonna get another girlfriend at work, all that kind of stuff. So he's like decided to quote unquote settle for Valerie. But then as soon as they get back to Valerie's house, he immediately picks up the phone and is like, "Hey, I need you to cover my shift." "No, no, no, we can still date even if I'm married. It'll be totally cool." And then you're like, "Oh no, he hasn't reformed. He's still a scumbag."
But the aliens don't know this. They think that Valerie and Ted have rekindled their relationship. Now it's time to go.
Yeah, and Mac is really sad, but Mac is literally best guy in the universe. Oh my goodness, everybody should be lucky enough to have a partner like Mac. And he does the selfless thing. He thinks Valerie is in love with Ted, and because he is in love with Valerie, he just wants her to be happy. And so, Ted catches them and he's like, "Wait, a spaceship! I knew it! You were aliens!" And so Mac uses the love touch on Ted and Valerie both. And as they're making out, he's like, "All right, goodbye, Valerie." You know.
I like how he wants to say something to Valerie, but he has not heard the Earth words for it yet.
Yeah, he literally says, I don't have the words. Which is he doesn't know the phrase "I love you," which is great. I love
He
this
doesn't
script
know how
so
to.
much.
Yeah. So all he can say is, "I'll miss you."
But Valerie, she overcomes that love touch because it turns out the love touch isn't going to make you have feelings that you don't have, I guess. And she's like, "No, wait, Mac, I really love you." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Let me come with you." And he's like, "You want to come back to my home planet?" And she's like, "I don't care where we go. I just want to be with you." And that's what she had said earlier to him at the Griffith Observatory Disco Dance Club about how you found Mr. Right is that you'll go everywhere together and it doesn't matter where you are. And he's like, "All right." And so he brings her into the spaceship and they head off to parts unknown.
As this is happening, Candy, Julie Brown, walks in with beer, kind of hoping, thinking
No,
that
margaritas.
margaritas. And it's like she wants to be there for her friend to cheer her up. And it says, "Oh, wait, you're leaving. You can't leave without margaritas." And then just tosses a can up to him. Which, this is the part where I do kind of question. Because Whitlock has been obsessed with Candy for the entire movie. Why is he not taking her with him?
Or staying with her.
Yes, either way.
Either or. And the thing is like I feel bad because like Zebo is the only one that doesn't get a hookup at all. You know, he gets the one chick on the dance floor and they have a dance moment, but like he doesn't even make out with her, you know? But
Hmm.
like both Mac and Whiplock fall desperately in love with an Earth woman and only one of them gets to keep their Earth woman. I think Candy would have probably been like, you know, it seems weird, but I could try it for a little while, you know? I'm sure that like they need beauticians in space, you know?
She's going to give that entire planet a makeover.
Yeah, can you imagine like if all the weird cat people are that hot underneath the weird cat fur? Like,
Yeah. She can make it a new trend.
yeah. So, yeah, it is the one part of the movie where I'm like, okay, this is the one thing I don't like about this movie is that like justice for Whiplock and Candy because they were super into each other.
Now, it could just be a physical thing. They were just going to have a one off, one night stand and be done with it. But still,
Yeah, they didn't even get the one night stand. Let the woman have his babies. Yeah, no. And just in case anybody was wondering, that is a joke. It's a joke that women make. Like I know that there's like the whole thing of like, oh, so she wanted to trap him with babies or whatever. Like, no, it's a joke. That's why she tells the other girls she wants to have his baby and not Whiplock. You know?
it's just a term for sex.
Yeah, it's like what she was saying was, I want to smash that. Smash or pass, definitely smash.
One thing that I did not remember until this rewatch, the final part of the movie, the spaceship goes through a donut shaped asteroid and then speeds off into whatever. It's possible that's why they crashed the car into the giant donut,
Yeah, maybe.
because they thought that was their launch pad home.
The thing is though is like they have the little thing of the rocket going through the donut shaped asteroid and I'm like, metaphor for sex or am I just hungry for Cheerios?
Yes. But yeah, that is Earth Girls Are Easy. And this movie was so fun to come back to.
This movie, it had been so many years since I'd seen it, and going into it when I was first like, okay, we've got to watch this movie. I was like, wait, is this was one of those where I'm like, ooh, you know, sometimes comedy doesn't age well. It is like a sex comedy from the 80s. Is this going to be super cringy? And with the exception of like one joke, like and the you know the bit with like Damon Wayans holding the fake gun, you know, like that's it. Like that's the only part where I'm like, you know, if you remade this now, you'd have to change like those two things. But like everything else in this movie is like just perfectly fine for today's audience, I think, as long as you accept it for what it is. You know, it's going to be in that like little shop of horror kind of camp, you know?
It's definitely a product of its time. You have to go into this movie realizing that this is an 80s movie in every sense of the word.
That it knows what it's doing. You just have to accept like this is not going to be a deep movie. This is not going to be an intellectual movie. This is not going to be like, you know, some great, you know, plot line behind it, but you are going to have so much fun watching this movie. And sometimes that's all you want from a movie. The worst thing a movie can be is boring. And this movie is not boring. It is super super fun.
And again, it's showing. And man, yes, they were dating, but the chemistry between Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum is off the charts here.
Yeah, they are such a hot couple together in this movie. You know, like just acting wise, you buy Valerie falling in love with Mac instantly. And like, just from like woman perspective, Mac, perfect boyfriend. Like, if you are a straight dude and you want to like know, like, what should I pattern myself on? Like, don't listen to the manosphere. Don't listen to like any of the like, you should be the Sigma male or whatever nonsense. Like, no, go look at how Mac acts in this movie and then be like, what is he doing here? He's listening to her. He's taking her needs into, account. He's like even letting her go when he thinks she's, rejecting him. He's not like trying to convince her otherwise. He's like, okay, her heart's in a different place. I am brokenhearted, but I will move on and let her be, like perfect role model for any dude who wants to hook up with a woman.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably added to, because it's the Jeff Goldblum sexiness of it all too.
Any of those characters, and like you can say like, oh yeah, they're all sexy and everything, but like even if Dr. Ted was just acting like that, you'd be like, woman, I know it's an alien and it's novelty, but you got a good guy there in Dr. Ted. Go back to him. Like if Dr. Ted had been acting like that, keep her, you know?
And
But no, like Mac is the one that's acting like that. That's the dude you want. And that's just the part, like throw gender out of it. That's just the type of partner you want,
I don't even think we need to ask the question. This does have the magic.
Super duper magic, fully magical, 100%, like all the right nostalgia hits if you're the same age as us, but also just like fun and goofy and silly, and it makes you feel good at the end. Like,
It's a very heartwarming ending where, Valerie makes her mind up. The love touch doesn't work on her because she's in love with Mac.
yeah, what a great movie, man. Like, why was last week's movie like seriously? What did Julie Brown put into last week's movie? Because if she'd have written last week's movie, it would have been more like this. This is what happens when Julie Brown writes a movie. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, like last week with Camp Rock, it felt like we were in our darkest hour. Our darkest hour. That gives me an idea for next week.
No.
Kiki, there's an anniversary of a certain movie coming up just about a month from now, and it's time to light our darkest hour. Yeah, yes, it is time. It is time to go into one of my favorite franchises of all time, Transformers. No, we are not talking about the Michael Bay movies. We are talking about the good one, the one that started it all, the one that we grew up with. Transformers the movie 1986. The apology tour takes a stop right here next week.
Cannot wait. Get your tissues out. Gonna be a very different vibe, but we will dare to be stupid.
Yes. We will have the touch. We will have the power as we talk Transformers the movie next week, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.